Hello, and welcome to another broadcast of Poplar Hill Baptist Church. We are a Christ-centered church where love is the greatest. We're excited today because we've got some of our great friends here to talk to us about a subject that's near and dear to all of our hearts, and that is that of mentoring. How important it is that we realize and understand that more of life is caught than taught. And so with that being said, we want to expose people who are around us, our young people particularly, our business community, as well as our young people that are going into the business arena to actually learn how to accept and learn how to be mentored into the successes that we know can be theirs. So today we are joined by, to my left, Mr. Jonathan Holmes, who lives here in the beautiful community, who is also collaboration with Poplar Hill and myself to develop a better racial community along the lines of our communique called Buford Forward. Buford Forward, and Jonathan will explain to you, is our impetus for helping businesses to mentor one another, particularly black businesses and white businesses that are successful, mentoring black businesses. And we will hear from him in just a minute. To my immediate right is Mr. James RAYFORD, who is Director of Gwinnett County Public School System Mentoring Program. Mr. RAYFORD and I have worked together for the last 11 years now, and I'm very, very excited to have him here tonight for a number of reasons, but more importantly because of the young men that we've had an opportunity to influence over the years here in Gwinnett County. The amazing thing about it is that some of these young men have grown up and matured and have grown up to become successful businessmen and successful fathers in the community, and it's exciting to have him here tonight with us. In addition to these two gentlemen, we have Miss TONI CAUTHEN. TONI and I are longtime friends. We've known each other for 33 years now. She is a resident of Douglasville, Georgia, and while she's a resident there, she and I have worked together at Corporation Georgia Pacific. And when I left Georgia Pacific, I came to Poplar Hill. I've been here 25 years. She's remained at Georgia Pacific. But one of the things that Ms. CAUTHEN is doing is actually preparing to mentor people, young people particularly, in the business arena. Sometimes young people fail to realize or to grasp an understanding about how corporate America works. And so her impetus in life from this point on will be to help young people to actually get into a community, a business community, and actually to mature in that business. So tonight, we're very happy to have all three of them, and I hope you will welcome them with us tonight here at Poplar Hill Baptist Church. Again, we're Poplar Hill Baptist Church. We're located at 234 East Shadburn Avenue in Buford, Georgia. And again, we are very happy to have you viewing our video today. So with that being said, I'm going to start our question off with Ms. TONI CAUTHEN because, again, she lives in my neighborhood, and I wanted her to kind of go first. Plus, she's a beautiful young lady. So, TONI, if you would, tell us a little bit about what's on your heart and what you think that God would like to share, you would like to share with the community tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Avery. So my goal and my passion is to help educate and expose young adults and women in the workplace, and not just in the workplace, but today, in light of the different things that are going on, I just believe that our young adults need some extra help and some extra mentoring. I would like to see more mentoring in the way of time management and work ethics, financial management, health and wellness, and those are just some of the areas that I've worked with an organization called Year Up. I've been involved with the Boys and Girls Club for many years, as my children were members of the Boys and Girls Club, and a mentor through Georgia Pacific, and just seeing the needs of our young adults now. And they say they're our future, and they really are, and I just believe that we need them technology wise, and they need us wisdom wise.
Excellent. So. Thank you. That's a good way to put it. Thank you. They do need the wisdom because there's a whole lot that they miss by not being aware, and I guess being shown that they need to be aware. So thank you very much for being here. Mr. RAYFORD, if you would, tell us a little bit about the Gwinnett County Mentoring Program. I could sit here and talk about it myself, but thank you for being here. And if you will, just share with us from the Gwinnett County Mentoring Program.
Thank you, Pastor Head. It's an honor to be here tonight. Again, my name is James RAYFORD, and The Gwinnett County Public Schools community-based mentoring program, we are impacting our communities one student at a time. And over the past 12 years, we have served students in middle school and high school. We've seen the program grow from 57 students back in 2009 when you first started to over 1,000 students last school year. And we've grown from not just serving our African-American males, but we now serve our African-American females as well as our Hispanic boys and girls. We have just 4 main goals that we try to focus on, and this is part of one of those goals, and that's mentor recruitment and retention. So we are looking for men and women to become mentors. And so what does that look like? Well, it simply means that you have time. We hear a lot of times when you hear the word, kids say, how do you spell the word love? About how much time do you put in? And so we're looking for men and women that can spend just 1 hour a week with our students to provide some support and encouragement in the areas of character and leadership. We also focus on college and career readiness, as Tony indicated about. We want to make sure our students are prepared when they leave high school to enter the workforce or by choice, or they choose to go on to continue to post-secondary education. So we focus on those areas. We look at STEM fields as well, entrepreneurship and financial literacy. In addition to our community-based mentoring program, we don't just work with our students and our volunteer mentors, but we also come alongside and provide resources to our parents. And then finally, we look at how can we sustain our program. We've been fortunate enough to sustain the program for 12 consecutive years through our annual golf tournament that you've been a very big supporter of. So those are the 4 main goals that our school system community-based mentoring program work with. And we found data to show that mentoring does make a difference. There's not a time goes by when I get a phone call or an email from a parent or a community member to say how mentoring has made a difference in the lives of our young men and our young women and our students there. So I am excited about the opportunity to share about the impact that mentoring has, because we know that when we touch our young people now, that this community is going to be greater in the future.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Mr. Rayford. Again, welcome. Mr. Jonathan Holm, thank you for being here. Next door, neighbor for us here at the church, and we're excited that you're here. And I want you to tell about the business involvement, how you plan to bring the business development part of our Buford Forward program together, if you will. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you everyone for being here. Thank you for the invitation. I feel like one of the biggest things is the leadership aspect that you mentioned, and the fact there's a possibility. When I started my business 16 years ago, I didn't want to look back and say, what if? And I love the fact that you're working with the young men and young ladies to make sure that we say, what if can they do? But also leadership is a big thing, because obviously Poplar Hill Baptist Church to me has been a beacon of hope for this community, and also for leadership. And that obviously I want to compliment Pastor Avery Head for his leadership in our community, because the Lord really put it on my heart to where we've got to do better. We've got to make sure we lead better, and we got to do better. And so when everything started going on on the national news as far as the harmony breaking between the African-American community, the white community, the police community, it really laid on my heart throughout my relationship with Pastor Head to really, for Buford, for us to do it better. And so we developed a movement called Buford Forward Together. Well, at the end of the day, is really about connectivity and access to where we really feel like we need to go as a community, but also it's really being true to who we are as individuals and say, this is how I feel, this is what we need to look at. And so part of it, we will monitor and look at the mentoring program, but also build the connections we have in the community. But we feel like that looking through that, we want to make sure we talk about what it feels like to start up, what it feels like to be a leader, what it feels like as far as possibility, where can I go? I see these young men and young ladies walking around. They're like, I don't know what I want to do in my life. We want to give them hope. We want to make sure they understand what's going on, but also we want to make sure we train them and understand what's going on. And there's a reality there, but also we're going to back up and say, you know what, we did some things wrong in the past, and we're going to do better. And I'm going to walk in your shoes. We're going to have a direct conversation, and we understand how we're going to build a better world for ourselves. And so in partnership with the Buford community, Gwinnett County Public Schools, and all the educational institutions, we're going to make a difference for these kids, because at the end of the day, it ain't about us. It's about the kids that follow us and what we're doing and the leadership and the lives we're going to change.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Jonathan. Again, thank you all for being here. And let me just go ahead and jump into this. So, Tony, at your workplace, if you will, and you've been there quite a few years now, do you see a disparity in the business community as it relates to going out in the sales force or in a business development sense, that there is a lack of training and a lack of accessibility in the workplace where a young entrepreneur perhaps or a young aspiring business person could actually grow in your business community and achieve great results. Can you speak on that?
Well, I think that in corporate America, I think things have changed so much. And I think that customer service and work ethics really need to be, I think, at the top of the list, as well as leadership training. I think those are areas and that we have kind of missed in the process of training our young adults in schools. You know, some of those things in the school system just don't exist anymore. Preparing our young adults to get into the workforce, whether it's a corporate job or whether it's a technical job, work ethics, customer service. I mean, we just need to go back and revisit those areas, because I don't care where you go today. I think that component is just missing, and I just believe that we need to get that back. Training and exposure is just going to be the most important thing that we teach them, and work ethics, accountability. You know, I always tell my kids, when you're on time, you're late, and that's just the way it is. You can't do what other people do, and you know, you have to be held accountable for your job performance. So with that, we look for more programs to help prepare young adults and especially and women as well in the workplace.
Very good. So Jonathan, in response to that, is there a place in corporate America or in businesses where those kind of things are held against you? When you show up on time, you're really late. When you are not programmed in a certain way, does that really affect a person's perspective in the business area?
I think when we've worked with kids in the past is that we've had internships and we've had mentors that have come in to work with us. I think to your point is that we've had kids that showed up, really wanted to do a job, and also became part of our company. But also we had kids that showed up or just kind of was there halfway. But to your point, it's so funny you mentioned leadership, because even my company is that we're actually looking at establishing a certified leadership program within our organization. And I think, too, is that intentionality, is that what does that mean as far as what you're doing, and the fact that kids can see this. But one thing that's been very powerful for us, and that you understand this through the mentorship, is it's important for kids to see what they want to do, what they don't want to do, and we align the passions to make sure they understand that, but also in that really drive what they want to be as individuals, to see the hope. And I think that's critical. We look at those type things. Okay,
thank you, Johnson. Mr. Rayford, so let me push the point a little bit, though, because you have 1,000 young men in your mentoring program, or young ladies, and how do you instill in them an understanding of intentionality, success that's bred from being honest, being true? How do you find mentors that actually will instill those kind of values in your people?
That's a great question, Pastor Ed, and we do a number of things, and that's one of the first things that I mentioned when I talk about character and leadership. So how does the community-based mentoring program address those things is when we provide our workshops, when we provide those activities for students and mentors to participate in, we have those conversations. We actually do an annual career summit. So we give students that opportunity to be exposed to talk to individuals who are in those careers. When we have our mentors that are matched up with our students, we talk about character and leadership, trustworthiness, respect, honesty, and all those things. So we look at a lot of those soft skills, and that's something that we've been focusing on. A new initiative that we've started this year is our student internship initiative, where we actually have identified some of our high school students, male students. Our girls just not there just yet. They just now 9th grade. But we identified some high school students who have expressed an interest in a career or a field that they're interested in, and they're going to have the opportunity to spend a 1-week experience in the summertime just shadowing. So they get that opportunity to learn those things. So through the internship initiative, through our workshops, through our mentor having those conversations, those are some of the ways in which we are instilling those leadership skills, those character traits, those things that we know that students are going to need, because that's, again, that goes back to our goal, too, of exposure. The more that we can expose our students to things, we know that the better off they're going to be. And I think that helps them understand what path they want to go in. Gwinnett County, we have a lot of resources for our students. We have work-based learning. We have our career clusters. We have career pathway schools. So students get an opportunity to determine, based on their interests, they get an opportunity to explore other avenues of which careers they want to explore. So I think we're going to have to continue to do those things on such a large scale to ensure that our students get those soft nuggets, those soft skills, those things that's going to transfer no matter what school or what job they go into.
So, Mr. Rachel, how do you prepare your mentors to handle a mentee and to direct them with all these skills?
Great question, Deb. So we do a couple of things. We not only provide our mentors with, once they go through their online training, the training manual, we have a actual handbook that we provide mentors. And this basically is just a blueprint or for mentors to use. It's not a mandate because some mentors they may have a story. So for give you an example, if our lesson is talking about responsibility and we have a sample lesson in that handbook for our mentors can use, but if a mentor has an experience about that responsibility, how they learn that, there's no better lesson for that than their mentor sharing their story. So mentors, we encourage mentors to share their experiences and resources with our students. So that's how we can able to transfer that information to our students.
Excellent. Tony, you've been in your company for 30 years, a little over 30 years. So tell me about some of your experiences that you could bring to the table for a young person who is just beginning out of college, has qualified themselves to be there, but need help navigating themselves around a business.
Well, I think work ethics is the most important thing, and that's getting our young adults to understand that there's a process. And so they may come in at an entry-level position and they may want to be in management, but there's steps and there's a process that you have to go through. There's no shortcuts. There's no easy way to do that. And just to take the time to learn and to be teachable is very important, and to be patient. Because, I try to explain to young adults about job hopping. So if you don't like what's going on here, okay, you might want to leave and go someplace else, but you go someplace else and it's going to be the same thing, but just a different company. And so to learn, to watch, to listen, to be teachable, and to show up with a positive attitude and learn as much as you can. And just to be patient and understand that there are steps. You can't just run to the top of any organization or any place that you want to be without going through a process and being taught.
Is it a struggle to get to the top in most corporations, though? A struggle. Is it a real struggle?
The struggle is real.
Okay.
I think it just depends because, I think corporate America has changed so much over the years that right now we're really looking to figure out how to retain that age group, because they don't want to sit behind a desk. They don't want to crunch numbers. They don't want to sit in front of a computer all day. They're very active, and their minds are busy, and they want to be creative. And I think if we don't allow that, then they start to move around, and then they don't have the patience that's needed to really grasp what it is that they might want to do. So I think a lot of it has to go back on companies to be able to understand that gap between maybe your more seasoned employees versus your newer employees and your younger employees that are coming in, because technology is just technology. It's just what it is. And they're a lot more efficient at it than some of us are. So we have to try to bridge that gap between how we're going to retain and keep them active and keep them motivated. If that means working from home, if that means, redesigning the office to make it a little more, enticing for them, well, maybe that's what you have to do.
Okay. So, Jonathan, let me ask another hard question. That question is, how do you deal with nepotism and favoritism in the business community when a young person is trying to grow and trying to move up in corporate America, in a business, develop a business, and then you run into nepotism, particularly along racial lines? How would you suggest that we deal with that, and as we move forward in this new age, how do we develop a mindset so that we don't get disillusioned, young people about working?
I think some of the stuff that I hear is that passion for your path, to me, has got to be critical as far as when we're talking about leadership or the young lives that are there. Because I was in accounting for a number of years before I got in the marketing business, and I remember there was a lady that she was my boss, and she's like, you know, if you complain about the bed you're in, you need to find another bed. And so part of it is that I feel like with the mentorship program, it's so important to expose what you're doing, but also with the kids as far as the passion for the path is that at the end of the day, no one owes you a living. No one owes you anything. And so you as an individual, as a young person or as a older adult, even now, you're responsible for your own passion, your own path as far as how you create it. One thing I do like about the mentor programs is that we have different levels that you can expose the kids to so they understand what's going on. Like you mentioned, kind of the kids from the creative standpoint, there's a whole sector called the creative economy, which is like kids in gaming, technology, industry, stuff like that. I have clients that are in the HVAC business, plumbing business, and they can't get talent because kids don't want to do that these days. Well, part of it is that you have to look at, like you're saying, as a company, how do you evolve? How do you support those kids? But also, I'll put the onus on the kids too, as far as like, how are you going to be creative? How are you going to chart your own path? How are you going to be creative with your passion? Because part of it is that it's almost like a good restaurant, is that you've got to build a fan base to where you create your own path, is that you got to make sure you serve good food. I love the fact that you mentioned as far as standard that you adhere to. Like when I went and did Principal for a Day with Gwinnett County Public Schools, I asked the kids, what are y'all's favorite brands? Well, you know what one of them said? I said, what about Burger King? Like, no. I said, tell me what your favorite brand is. They're like Chick-fil-A. I'm like, well, why Chick-fil-A? They're like, because you know what? I get my food and with a smile, it's my pleasure. I said, so that's your brand standard you adhere to. I said, you've got your own brand. You got to make sure you hit too. I said, so you got your own brand. You got to make sure you hit it. And you got to make sure people understand what your passion is and how you're leading that. And so part of it is that you've got in that scenarios, what I'm saying to the kids is that if you're in a place where your passion and your path is not the right place, find another path. But in it is that, yes, you do have to confront what you're doing. And at the end of the day, I started my own business. And so to these kids that are out there, find out, look around, go through these programs, connect with people. And if you don't feel like it's the right thing for you, build your own path.
Excellent. Mr. Rayford, that throws one in your lap then. Because how do you take 1,000 kids again and when you realize where they come from, the struggle they've had, how do you create the energy, the necessary energy for them to want to create their own path, to want to do better, to build a life that is going to be rewarding? Well, all around them has been nothing but disappointment. How do you address that from the mentoring program?
That's a great question, and I would say that that's an ongoing question. That's an ongoing process. There is not a one size fits all. I think the best way that we are trying to approach it is have students to understand their strengths, find out what they're good at. And I think the more that you can expose kids to things, then it can kind of sense that motivation. Then they can see that, okay, this person is in this field, and these are the steps that they took to get there. And we always try to tell our students that regardless of your circumstances, that's just where you are now, but that does not mean that this is how you have to be defined for the remainder of your life. You can get out of those areas. And so I always challenge our students in that I say, you tell me, I say, if you put forth the effort, I said, I'm pretty sure that I'm gonna find a mentor or find a resource that's willing to work with you. I said, I look at, you have to provide students with real life examples that they can see, that they can connect with, and it has to be relevant to them. So someone that can relate to them, someone that can show them the way, that can have those honest conversations and be not only that, but be empathetic for them and not necessarily give them a handout, but just tell them that education is going to be your way out. If you want a better life for yourself, one of the best things you can do for yourself is to get a good education, because that's going to open up doors for you.
And so education is not just textbook, but there's also experiences, the life experiences that we can offer. Is that correct?
But also, if I can say something, when I started my business 16 years ago, the person when I started my business, I was told I was going to fail. Well, you know what? I get up every day and fail every day, but I got my own business and I keep on going. And so part of it, like you're saying, is that in the situation that you got to make sure these, they understand it. I think part of it is that a lot of times the kids and also everybody is that they feel like that it's not possible, or they don't think they have opportunity, or they don't think that they can do it themselves. And so part of it is that, we've got to make sure that we instill, and you're doing a great job through the mentor program, is that make sure that they can see the light and make sure understand is that, there are people, there are hidden figures all over the place that can make a difference and change the world.
Tony, I know that you volunteer with tons of stuff. I don't know how you do it without being a pastor, but you volunteer. And again, so have you learned a lot? Have you learned enough to actually tell a young person that volunteering is another way to learn, get a good education in an area specifically that they would be interested in and working and developing a career in, something around volunteerism?
So I think there's a quote, and I want to get it right. Service is the rent we pay for our time here on earth. And so my parents served in our community. So that's just how I was raised. My mother served in church. That's how I was raised. So when I moved here, my first experience with serving was at the Boys and Girls Club, the Grant Park Boys and Girls Club. Yeah. And from there, it just went, when I joined church, I just served. Wherever my kids went to school or whatever sport they played, that's where I served. Because I think if we all sit back and say, well, what they need to do and what they should do, well, we are we and we are they. So everyone, I think it's everyone's responsibility. And I think especially now, it's more of a responsibility of the church and the community to come back together and say, it's time for us to get back into the community and get back into, helping our communities, building our kids. When we were growing up, we had community centers. We had the Boys and Girls Club. We had the YMCA. We had places to go where people were there to help us and to mentor us and to expose us to different things. And right now, our kids just don't have that. There's no more after-school programs. There's just not a lot for our kids to get involved in. So it is our responsibility as parents and community leaders to not only help our kids, but to also involve parents. School systems should be holding parents accountable. Parents need to come to the school. Well, not now, but parents need to be involved with the school, the teachers, the lunchroom, whatever is going on in that school. It is a parent's responsibility to know what's going on and what's needed in that school, as well as in the community. Because the longer we sit back and just watch, it's not going to grow, and it's going to be a lot more difficult for change if we all don't pitch in and help.
Excellent. So, Ms. Rayford, do you have a hard time getting people to pitch in and help, particularly mentors?
Yes and no. We do have a great number of volunteers that have been with us for a number of years. But also, I think I shouldn't say the answer is no. I think the answer is yes, but we just need more. We just need more because there is so much more there are so many other students that we can provide mentoring services to, but we do need some more mentors to get involved with that. So I think that is how we're going to be able to serve a lot more students. And during this pandemic, that's one of the challenges that we've had of mentoring, not being able to have as much face-to-face with that. But on the flip side of that, for those mentors who are tech savvy, or even our program, it does allow us to reach more students virtually now. So that's one avenue which we can possibly give some kids some more exposure. And then when things settle down and when we have the virus is under control and we can start back having our face-to-face interaction, then I'm hoping that we'll have more mentors that can then say, okay, hey, I have the time and I can make a difference.
As a former principal, did you invite parents to come to the school and help run the school?
Absolutely. We have a local school council, but we always invited parents in to come in, observe, and ask questions to be supportive of that. We wanted them to join the PTAs. We want them to participate in our parent conference nights. We even did a number of things. I recall when I was at principal of Lilburn Middle School, when we did our parent nights, we provided childcare, we fed them. So we provided all those things for parents. We understand that parents are working full-time. They have a full-time job, and then for them to get off work and to come to the school. So we wanted to be sympathetic to them, empathetic with that, and provide them with those resources there. But yes, I would always encourage parents to come into our schools to get involved.
Excellent, very good. Jonathan, let me push another question to you for just a minute. And that's, again, mentoring, the business side of mentoring, of larger business, mentoring a smaller business. Because I believe that we're all in commerce together. We're all in the economics together. If one fails, we all fail. So is there in a plausible way for the Chamber or the Kiwanis Club here in Beaufort to actually start to develop a development so that smaller businesses, particularly minority businesses, can be mentored by a larger white business, if you will?
The answer is yes. We will get it done. So part of it in that situation, I think, as I mentioned, as far as kind of the passion and the kids, we're looking at this. To me, I look at the same way where you would match the kids with the correct potential employer or what they want to look at, is that the biggest thing I feel like would be making sure we match the correct mentee with the mentor from a corporate standpoint or a business standpoint. And also, too, is that you look for willing hearts. I think the biggest thing is that we look at kind of what we're trying to do as a community and make sure we communicate what we're trying to accomplish, and then what we feel like we want to make sure from an economic standpoint as far as really making a difference. Because part of it is that, it's the old adage of, you can either give somebody a fish or teach someone how to fish. So part of it is that I feel like through a formalized program like that, we'll be successful as connecting those. But also I think part of it is that really look at the businesses that we're connecting and why they're connecting, but also is that it's for the thing, what's so funny about this, the mentor stuff, is that when we had kids that came in and did internships, is that you think that the business is getting so much, but actually the kids are giving so much to the businesses. And so part of it is that we need to make sure we have the right conversation to where it's actually the businesses that are doing the mentoring are going to get the most from the ones that are mentoring too. Is that sowing the seed and really planting the seeds? But also part of it is, I think in this is that I said passion, but also purpose, is that I feel like when you're doing these type things, as far as setting these programs up, is you need to make sure that we're all connecting and we said there's a purpose behind what we're doing and building our community.
Very good. Thank you. And I totally concur. One thing that I'm still struggling with perhaps and wrestling with is the whole idea of internship. And that is, in some businesses, the intern is the person that does the grunt work. They don't really get you into the ground floor and help you understand how important the mailroom is to the executive boardroom. They just leave you in the mailroom and say you've had an internship program. Do any of you want to speak to that? How important it is for the internship to be all-inclusive?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head there, Pastor, but this is our first year, so I can't speak to it as much, but I do know how important it is. When we were planning to have a internship for our students this past summer, and they were going to be just shadowing with individuals in those areas. So I do believe that it's important that they see various aspects of it. And I think you can do some job shadowing where you can have students go in different departments and not just put them in one place.
Right. To that point is that one of the things from you're doing this from a structure standpoint is you look at the job description that you're willing to put these kids through, or the mentoring program specifically, is like you're saying, is that you don't want it to be grunt work. You want to make sure it's meaningful. And from that standpoint is I think a lot of businesses look at this is that they think it's going to be a commitment that's going to last a year or whatever. It's like, to your point, is that I look at, you have a day of a job shadowing where they can come in and look at this stuff. They can understand things. You have maybe a project they can work on. And so part of it is I think the fluidity of those things going to make a big difference. But I really feel like it's important to have job descriptions to make sure that we're not trying to get cheap labor here. We're really trying to make meaningful movement here, you know?
Right. Tony, would you like to speak to that at all?
Oh, yes. And at Georgia Pacific, we actually have a mentoring program where we adopt some elementary schools. And we go to the elementary school. We support the elementary school in all aspects. And we go in and we have a mentee that we try to pick one from third grade so that we can follow them, through at least a few years. And we do have a job shadowing program where they actually come to our company and we have a little program for them, and they come and sit in the office with us and we introduce them to like you said, different areas in the company. We try to cover the mailroom. We try to, from the mailroom to the boardroom. We take them, we give them a tour around the Georgia Pacific building. And so I think, like you said, that gives them, kind of an idea of maybe what is possible for them to do, whether it's sales, whether it's accounting, whether it's marketing. They do have an opportunity to kind of see all the different aspects of how the company runs. I happen to be in the department in the division that does consumer products. So they always like to go into the rooms where they have all the bath tissue and the paper towels and, all the different Dixie products and things that we make. And so they didn't know, like when you say Georgia Pacific, people say, is that a rail company or, a railroad company? So they don't even know all of the different things that Georgia Pacific provides. So I think, giving them that aspect of the company history and the different things that they're involved in, like you said, exposure is just, to me, number one.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that. Sometimes when you're exposed, again, let me get back to choosing a career. And of course, you give the shadowing, you give the opportunity for the internship. What if that just doesn't seem to fit? How do you handle that?
It's so funny because I actually wanted to say this following to your point where we talk about job shadowing. One of the most successful internship program that we ever had was with a young lady. And she came in and she worked for us and she thought she wanted to do a certain type of job. Well, then she ended up working for us for a couple of months through the internship program, actually through Gwinnett County Public Schools. And she realized that she didn't want to do that job, but she actually ended up doing something else. And so through that, she discovered what she really wanted to do. And so I think that's just as powerful as understanding kind of the path you're going to pick. You're able to decide, okay, you know what, I don't want to do this.
Mr. Raven, you mentioned the golf tournament. I hate to bring up golf because I've been ridiculed about golf, but I get a lot of perks from golf. So what does the golf tournament with Gwinnett County provide?
Great, Pastor. The golf tournament that we host annually, we've done 10 consecutive golf tournaments, and we've been fortunate to have always yielded a profit. And so those funds that we raise from the golf tournaments have helped us to provide scholarships. We have provided over $25,000 in scholarships over the last 6 years to students to continue their post-secondary education. It pays for transportation for us to go on college tours and college field trips, provides us with our career summits when we have our speakers. So it goes a long way in supporting our students along in terms of things of giving them that exposure in the areas that they may not necessarily have seen.
Very good. So Tony, how important is preparation for success in corporate America? And you hear Mr. Rayford, we're talking about, the golf tournament providing scholarship and actually trips, if you will. And I know that takes place as well as summits for young people. How important is that for a young person to be exposed to success?
Well, education does play a big part, but I also believe that experience is just as important. And so there's different avenues that we can try to lean them towards. So I think because businesses are changing so much right now, I think that as my children tell me, Mom, you can learn anything on YouTube. And so, they're exposed to much more than what we were. We were raised, you go to college, you get a job, you get that experience. But today, technically, you can go to YouTube and you can learn anything. And so we have to learn how to be a little more competitive there in teaching and kind of gearing them towards maybe a different way of viewing corporate America or different businesses. We have to advertise differently. They're not going to go the same route that we went. It's not always just go to college and get a job. I think that the schools have to incorporate a little bit more in terms of college prep and just preparing kids for the real world, because I know a few of my kids just did not feel prepared, that school prepared them for the real world, for college. A lot of them were not prepared and mature enough to take on the responsibility. And so I think that the schools and, other organizations and mentoring programs have to really begin to prepare our kids for the reality of adulting, as they say, because once they get out there, they have this perception of what it means to get out. Oh, I can't wait till I get out of this house so I can do what I want to do. No, they get out there and they find that's not the real world. And, being accountable is now your job.
And I understand you can learn it from YouTube and everything, but can YouTube take the place of college and good mentorship and things like that?
No, I'm not going to say that, but this age group and this generation, that's where their learning comes from. That's where a lot of their learning comes from. Sure. So I think now it's a little more, it's just a little more competitive, because they don't see going to college as an option, but they see other avenues now.
So then what's the edge?
So one of the things too, and since I'm in the media business, is that, and you experience this, I'm sure, with the mentorship program that you do, is when these kids learn these things, they don't learn reality. They see an altered reality. Is that when people are on there promoting things, they're not promoting their own reality. And so there is a battle between a virtual reality and a true reality as far as what's going on. And so there's a huge wake-up call there, unfortunately, when kids have that experience.
So how do we help them to be educated, Tony, between the two? I mean, once you get the YouTube experience and then you have the practical experiential experience, how do you help them to understand there's a big difference in the two? One you get from the visual, the one you get from the experience. Which one's more reliable?
Well, I think that has a lot to do with their choices. Okay, so I think it's just been my experience that at a certain age, they have to be held accountable for their choices and their decisions. So I think leading them and giving them the proper exposure to people who can really lead them and guide them to a different place. I mean, social media is what it is. And I think once they grasp the fact that no, you can't learn everything on YouTube or, social media, I think getting back to some basics and getting back to just, the old-fashioned way in some cases is really what is going to allow them to take those steps and the proper steps, because they feel like social media and all those channels are instant. I can instantly learn. I can just pull up YouTube. I can learn how to do it. But you've missed so much of other experiences behind that.
Very good. Mr. Rayford, so in addition to that, can you share how important the experiences are that a mentor brings to a mentee?
Well, the experiences are invaluable that a student can receive from a mentor, because that's not something that they're going to get on a YouTube. That's not something they may necessarily get in school, but those life learning experiences that they can relate to and someone that can actually speak to it makes a huge difference.
Okay. What's the general age, the average age of your mentor?
Average age of our mentor, I would say approximately 40 years and up. We do have the majority of our mentors are older, but we do have a young generation of mentors that we're trying to recruit right now.
Okay, so since you said that, let me push the point. So do you think the experiences from the younger mentor is better than, and I don't mean better, but more advantageous for a mentee than a seasoned 40-year-old, 45, 60-year-old?
Well, I think it comes down to the individual. I think you can actually have a case of both. I don't necessarily think that one is better than the other. I think it's all about how well they can communicate with each other. What we find is sometimes some of the younger mentors, they're actually still growing themselves. They're finding their ways in their careers. But when we have our veteran mentors, those are men and women that have worked in their careers 25 and 30 years, and now they're ready to give back. They've raised their children, they've raised their families, and now they have some time to give back. I think in terms of that, I think age is not a factor. I think it's about how well you can communicate and relate.
Very good. Tony, would you like to speak to that as well?
Well, I think there's such a small window of opportunity here when you're dealing with young adults and kids, um, because I mean, as I was growing up, I always thought my parents were old, and what do you know? But I do think that their attention spans are just so short, and so that's a challenge for me to get to a point to where I can get in the back door or the side door with them and come up with something that will catch their attention long enough for them to say, she might have a point here, because the most of the kids that I speak to are between the ages of maybe 20 and 28. And they're still learning, they're still growing, they're still trying to figure it out. But I think what's good about that age group is that I think they're a little more willing to learn now because they've been out there long enough to know what's right, what's wrong, what worked, what didn't work. So, maybe mom and dad were right. Maybe those teachers were right, because now that they've been out there and they've been tossed around and, back and forth, I think that experience, allows them to want to come back and learn.
Excellent. Thank you. Listen, I'm so glad that you all are here to share in this whole mentoring process. Again, January is National Mentoring Month, and we want to keep that in mind. We definitely want to make sure that if you're listening, if you're seeing our video, we want to make sure that you know that you can volunteer and become a mentor for someone, either in the business community or as a student or in a life coach scenario. The important thing is that your experiences matter. So many people go through life not believing and understanding that they've got something to share, but we all have something that we can share to make our communities better. So with that being said, Mr. Rayford, I'm going to give you a last opportunity to say whatever you'd like to say finally, then Tony, then Jonathan, if you will.
Your time makes a difference.
I just believe that everyone should take a look at some time and their talent. I think it's our responsibility to respond to our communities right now to help rebuild.
I think one of the biggest things that I would like to share is that it's okay, even when you had young kids at an early age, had lemonade stands or they had vegetables on the side of the road, they understood that they could make money, and it's okay to make money and build wealth. And I think in this situation, it's okay to make money and give back and serve your community.
Thank you. This time, thank you. I'd like to give Mr. Rayford an opportunity to do something I promised to him. I would send a video back to him so Mr. Rayford. Yes.
Thank you, Pastor Ed. I just want to take this opportunity to present you with our first community-based mentoring program, Power of One Coin, for your service, commitment, and support for making a difference in Gwinnett County Public Schools. So I'd like to present you with that coin. You've added so much value to our community and to our program. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Rayford, and it has been a pleasure serving and working with Gwinnett County Mentoring Program, as it has been to have all of you here with us tonight at Poplar Hill Baptist Church. Again, thank you for listening. You've been with Poplar Hill Baptist Church, a Christ-centered church where love is the greatest. Located here in Beaufort, Georgia, we're celebrating 134 years of service here in Gwinnett County. God bless you. God keep you is our desire.